So in this lesson, we're going to be talking about the concept of continuous enrollment. So the idea behind continuous enrollment is to keep the parents opted in year after year, rather than the assumption that they're opting out and you have to approach them and ask them every year if they're planning on re-enrolling. If you start the relationship off with your contracts and making it clear from the beginning that you offer, the way your school works is that you're enrolled continuously until the parent opts out, that allows you to have a relationship with the transitions with those parents, being able to focus on just the positive, like talking about them about next year, making these assumptions, because the assumption is actually built in and agreed to at the beginning, allowing you to just completely avoid these kind of negative conversations that force the parents to go through the whole consideration of whether they should stay here or look at other schools. Of course, at any point in time, the parents can decide not to re-enroll, and at any point in time, you can still suggest that the parents need to find another school. But for the parents, and hopefully the majority of your parents that you want to keep enrolled for your whole program, this is a way that just makes that easier and more likely that parents won't be thinking about leaving the school. So with continuous enrollment, the idea is once enrolled, always enrolled. And you can highlight the benefit of this to the parents at the beginning of the relationship when they're going through the admissions process by letting them know about the benefit of having guaranteed placement. For those parents, if there's any pushback or if they're asking about why you do this, why you have continuous enrollment, there likely won't be, but if there is, you can basically just tell them, this is a way to ensure that your child has a placement guaranteed throughout once you're enrolled, once you get through our admissions process, your child has a place in our school for as long as you want. And this is something that you can actually go ahead and implement this year, even if you haven't been doing it. So the way you want to do that is, before the end of the year, because you're going to be doing a re-enrollment process anyways, you want to obviously prepare to have this discussion and talk about the benefits and the incentives of having a child, having the enrollment change from a yearly cycle to a continuous cycle. So this lesson is all about recruiting your staff in regards to retention. As we know, retention is so important to schools. I've talked to hundreds of schools. I talk to schools every day, at least 2 or 3 of them, and I ask them, one of the questions I usually start off by asking is, what's your retention rate? It seems to be, schools are on average probably about 75 to 80% of a retention rate, specifically for non-graduating students. That's the exact metric that is really important for schools to talk about. Obviously, children graduate and they move out. Counting those as part of your retention is, as far as improving your retention as a strategic initiative, that doesn't help you very much. So I want to talk about working with teachers in the effort of increasing your retention. Teachers are on the front lines, right? So they have this opportunity to interface with parents, and teachers are generally wonderful at that. But the question is, how do we use that opportunity really strategically to work on retention, and what can teachers do to help the school increase retention? Of course, the most important thing is that the children are thriving. So that's assumed that's going on at your school. So what I'm talking about is specifically the interactions that teachers can have with the parents to gauge their happiness and what we at Hubbli call parent success. Because schools are obviously, rightly so, completely focused on the success of the child. But there needs to be another strategy running in parallel, which is parent success. And we know Montessori schools are very focused on parent education, and there's good reason there. So that's something that we can talk about in another module. But very specifically, trying to approach this topic of parent success and in regards to retention is where teachers, if you have a strategy in place where you are, let's say on a regular basis, whether it's, let's say monthly. Monthly is a pretty good pace to work on something like this. You sit down with your staff, you have a meeting, and either it's in a staff meeting where everyone's together or you work with your staff one-on-one. Obviously, that's up to you. But you want to have the teachers answering the same questions in regards to each parent. And you want to know how likely, let's just say a simple Likert scale between 1 and 10, how likely are these parents to enroll next year, or obviously not move away? If you're running a continuous enrollment, how likely are they to not opt out of our school? So that's something that it's very simple to do, just a simple 1 out of 10 question, but you can also work with the parents work with the teachers and tell them to think about that. So if the teachers understand that they're part of this strategy and this is a regular thing, then you don't have to give them any specific script or what to ask, but at least they'll be thinking about this. They'll be making the connection between how they interact with not just as a teacher with the children, but also with the parents, and they'll be looking for cues. And of course, you can get more advanced with this and bring in consultants to talk about retention and parent success. But even just getting this very initial strategy in place will give you very, very actionable information that you can then move forward with. And now what I do suggest is that you select one staff member to kind of head this up, whether it's a teacher or someone in the office or yourself, but this should be one person. And I do suggest, by the way, it not being the director or the head of school. Any school leaders, you have enough on your plate. And of course, retention is on your plate. This is your responsibility. But when you want to take a tactic and put it into action for that retention strategy, what you want to do is delegate it to somebody so that it's just not another thing that you're adding onto your plate. So pick a teacher and make them sort of the head of parent success. So really, the other benefit of selecting one person is that they'll get better and better at it, right? So if somebody's a teacher and obviously teaching is their main focus, but they've got this one new additional small job, they'll be able to get better and better at it. It'll become easier and easier for them to do, and you'll be able to gather information that you can then have those conversations with the parents that seem to be high risk at the right time. And of course, you want to be really using this information ideally before it becomes a problem. But certainly at those transition times from, whether someone's going from lower elementary to upper elementary, whatever it is, you want to make sure that you come prepared for that information. You can think about it. You can let it steep. You can, take the information you know about the parents, and if you employ this on a very simple level, you're going to see an increase in your retention rate simply by being aware. It's kind of like, one of the best ways to lose weight is just to write down everything you eat, just because you become aware of how much you're eating without even purposely trying to cut down. That alone, right, will help you lose weight. Well, kind of like this, being aware of where your parents are at, taking inventory of your parents and having simply a 1 out of 10 scale of all your parents to see, let's say you've got 100 parents and you've got them all in a list, and you can see which ones are more likely or less likely to remain in the school. So that gives you the ability to not only know that information, but also to focus on the ones that seem less likely. and put your energy there rather than adding extra energy to everybody. So again, this is about being strategic because there's nothing but time constraints when you're running a Montessori school. I know I sound like I ran one myself. I haven't, but I help work with Montessori schools day in and day out. And one thing I know is that people running schools have too much to do as it is. So taking your time and using it strategically, taking your focus and your workload and putting it to where it needs to be the most is one of the best ways to optimize your administration. So again, when you have that information, you can act strategically, you can put your focus where it needs to be rather than just spreading it across to everybody, and you'll see an improvement in your retention rate.